Hello everyone and welcome to Katharine's Creatures. This is a series where I get to talk a little bit about and touch base upon various mythological creatures, beasts, beings, and the like, pulled from lore worldwide. And I always like to preface by saying that I am not a linguist, so if I mispronounce anything, I do apologize in advance. And today I wanted to talk about the concept of the moon rabbit and the moon hare. Why I worded it that way is the moon rabbit / hare is essentially a mythological technically figures, that come from a variety of peoples in East Asia as well as indigenous peoples of America and their folklore. So how is there this concept of a moon rabbit or moon hare that is rather known globally, if you really think about it, in places that aren't necessarily geographically near each other? And this is just essentially because the theory is that the moon rabbit and hare is based upon the interpretation and from IDing the dark markings on the near side of the moon, and that some of these markings, if you look at it in a certain way, do appear to have a depiction of a rabbit on the moon. And so these stories probably came about because they were trying to explain why there is a rabbit on the moon. And the stories again differ dramatically because so many people around the world see the same image in the moon and have come up with their own variation and explanation of this phenomenon. And in East Asia, the rabbit is often depicted utilizing a mortar and pestle for different reasons, and within the mortar is usually thought to have various contents. Again, all depends on the population and the stories themselves. Now, some of the peoples who believed in this moon rabbit concept are China, Japan, Korea, Vietnam. So again, a number of different populations. In China, the moon rabbit was thought to be a companion, or often thought to be a companion of the moon goddess Chang'e. Hopefully I pronounced her name right. And in those stories, the rabbit helps kind of create and make the elixir of life, thus utilizing the mortar and pestle, but also making rice cakes and cakes, again, along with the goddess herself. In Japan and Korea, it's thought that the rabbit is actually making mochi or some other different kind of specialized rice cakes of their regions. In Vietnam, it's depicted as accompanying several different characters from their myths and legends. And going back to the concept of creating the elixir of life, they thought that their version of the rabbit did that as well. Now, again, each culture, each population have their own distinct stories, and even in different parts of history, they have variations in their stories. So if you are fascinated with this concept of the moon rabbit or moon hare, do look it up. I didn't want to go and ramble on for hours and hours about all the differences, but I'll give one little more specific example. Going back to China, during the Han Dynasty, the rabbit concept was actually given the name jade rabbit or gold hare, and again, it reappears in lots of tales that way. So if you've ever heard of the jade rabbit, it is in reference to the moon rabbit idea from Chinese myth. Now, moving over to the Americas, again, there have been a variety of populations that have looked into the moon, seen the rabbit shape, and come up with their own stories. The Mayans, it was believed, associated this moon rabbit with one of their moon goddesses. So again, there's that concept that the moon is a lot of times depicted as represented by a goddess figure. And so it is interesting that various goddesses have rabbits as their friends and companions. By the time the Aztecs kind of rose to power, some of their beliefs came up with stories that were unique to themselves, including the fact that they had this god, Quetzalcoatl, hopefully I pronounced his name correctly, but Quetzalcoatl at one point was in a bind and was starving, and the rabbit, common everyday rabbit, saw the god in need and decided that the rabbit offered itself to sacrifice as a sacrifice to the god. And in appreciation, the god lifts the rabbit body all the way up to the moon and brought it back down and said, now your imprint is on the moon. Everybody will look up there, see what you did, and this will be a reminder of the great sacrifice that you're about to give me. So the imprint of the rabbit was left on the moon. But as I said, there are so many different stories pertaining to the concept of a moon rabbit or hare from around the world. So again, if you are interested in looking into this further, please do. There's so much to talk about in this particular concept. I know this one is a wide bracket, but it was one of the best ways to kind of at least broach the topic, is talking about the fact that globally there are a number of different peoples that looked up in the moon, kind of distinguished the same kind of formation, and said there must be a rabbit associated with the moon itself. Now, if you have questions for me about this or anything else, please post them in the comments below, or join or message me on any of my social media, thinking about what I'm talking about today, any of my other social media, and I'll be happy to try to respond to the best of my abilities. Until next time, everyone, Skål.